I wouldn't say driver, and I say hang out. I'm being very colloquial and everyday about it because we all do all of these. It's more like what's our favorite flavor? What's most familiar to us? And therefore, what have we made the most distinctions in? What are we the most expert at? Just by having done it again and again and deepening and making more distinctions. And so you can understand that as we go through life, we get better and better at what we're good at, and we don't know about what we don't know. We don't know that we don't know. And what the meta-programs approach offers is a way of beginning to go, oh, well, if you wanted to really extend yourself, you could look at the categories that you don't hang out in as much. And you could begin to wonder how you could develop more different behaviors. Or you could begin to wonder about more of identity. And then again, this was just a few minutes in this context. In another context, perhaps she does. But here's the deal. All of us can't not. Whenever we're talking about anything, whenever we're communicating with anyone else, even ourselves, we're utilizing these basic distinctions to make sense up and down our experience through our time, through positions, and our other possibilities. What about our perceptual position? Yeah. And yet she works with people. How self-centered. No, I'm kind of guessing that if we quizzed her a little more, she's talking about I because I prompted her, sensitivity to initial conditions, this is systems dynamics now, is that I prompted her by saying, tell me of something about yourself, something you'd enjoy talking about. Because I can't not offer meta-programs when I offer a question. And when I offer a question, I'm already biasing her answer. And if she's at all other-oriented, what is she going to do? She's going to try to cooperate. So she may have been making more I statements than she would normally make because I asked her to talk about herself. Ron, you're already into tomorrow, advanced elicitation strategies. Come back to today. Thank you very much for coming up. Thank her. I wonder if in some way this hasn't opened new worlds for you. I'm wondering whether you're going back to your condominium, your home, the grocery store, the corner market, as you overhear conversations, if you'll be able to keep yourself from hearing all these extra that you heard before. And as you're over dinner tonight and you go, I, as you realize that you can't not, I want you to take a breath. And I want you to think, you know, you got to start somewhere. Everybody was born somewhere. And so all of us, as we wake up to the patterns that we picked up somewhere along in life, can sigh and smile and go, well, got to start somewhere. And every one of those patterns, even if they embarrass you from time to time, are a resource. There's something that can make a profound difference in certain parts of your life. We all know about Copernicus' famous names from the tradition. What people don't know about Copernicus is that he didn't publish his book until he knew he was really close to the end. And we're talking about the late 70s. Because he was suggesting that the Pope and the church and the way the whole society was organized was wrong. That it wasn't the earth in the center of the universe with the sun going around it, but it was the sun in the center with the earth going around it. And so when the book was finally published and he was still alive, he wrote a letter to the Pope, of course, in Latin. And I won't even try to pretend to do the Latin, but the letter started out in very florid form, "Dear Pope, sorry I ruined your universe." And then he went on for several pages to explain that he thought that this new universe, in which the sun was at the center and the earth and the planets and the stars moved about it, was more profoundly beautiful and more a representation of the celestial majesty and the possibilities of the universe than that old other model that they had before. He never heard the Pope's reply. It was to arrest Galileo. Some people just don't have a sense of humor. And not realizing that it was just another map. We forget sometimes that they're maps. My primary work in NLP is as a modeler. And that means modeling exquisite talent. It's also meant modeling a problem and ruining it. And in modeling exquisite talent, I've been privileged to meet extraordinary individuals that everyone, in some sense, would call extraordinary. And one of them I want to mention is Jorge Luis Borges. Borges was a diminutive Argentine man and died in 1986, in his 80s. And he was a writer of the fantastic realism school, a fabulist, a poet, who would write a novel that was only 2 pages long, an epic poem in 3 or 4 stanzas, and an imagination that reached deep into the past and far into unknown possibilities. And he talks about, in one of his essays, of a country in which the highest art form was map making. Now, in some societies, it's architecture. We have a lot of that in Chicago. In some societies, it's painting. In some societies, it's music. In others, they combine them. But in this society, it was map making. And of course, they started out by making they started with 2-dimensional maps and coloring them, and they had topological maps, and they had survey maps. And then they began to build 3-dimensional maps, where they actually had the little buildings on it, and they would move the stuff around during the day as it moved around in the actual world. And they'd have a map the size of this room that might map this town. And they'd have a map the size of this town that would map this country. And one day, their finest artist, their premier master, came out of his studio and said, "I have done it. I have created a map that is the same size as the territory." And as you leave out in the evening, and you're in that golden hour when the sun is warm and gold, and you can see that sunset that takes your breath, you might look out of the corner of your eye and see in a bit of the shadow that map sticking up. Well, I got to meet Jorge Luis Borges several years later when he came to Chicago to lecture. I was one of the people privileged to actually go and speak with him again. And as we were talking, I told him how this story had affected me. And I'm not the only person that's been affected by his stories. And he says, "Charles, I've thought about this, and I don't think anymore about the map curling as I did in the story. I think of a square, a Spanish square, where conversations are exchanged, and with each word in each conversation, a map is revealed, and layer upon layer, they rise up to the heavens." Dream on that. And enjoy your new insights, because one world discarded is another one revealed, and more than that. Thank you, and sweet dreams.